Welcome back to the Real Friends podcast. We have our dear friend from the Forest Film Club, Chocolate Barramundo, on today. How's it going, buddy?
If you don't know, you should know. I woke up on the right side of the bed, and the right side of the bed is on the top side because every day you wake up, waking in bed and not in the dirt is a good day.
Right on. Gonna try to match your energy tonight. Um, we are here to talk Dogma. This is a movie that's been very hard to find, since its home video license expired a few years ago, and this movie was released by Harvey Weinstein. So it's been kind of difficult to get this, but recently Kevin Smith has re-released the movie in about 1,000 theaters. It made $1 million in one weekend on the re-release. So we are here to talk 1999's Dogma. So, right off the top, Mundo, I just want to know, we've talked about Kevin Smith. This is his fourth feature-length film he released. So, what was your first taste of Kevin Smith?
My first taste of Kevin Smith was uh, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. This was a movie. I had a friend, Tyler, whose mom I would always spend the night at their house, and like his mom probably left us alone like way earlier than what we should have been left alone,
Sure.
right? But hard working woman, and she trusted our judgment. We never got injured or burned the house down, but we would ravage her like movies, and so we saw a lot of movies that I don't know if we should have seen or like fully understood watching at such a young age, and that was definitely Jay and Silent Bob for us. Um, Along with other movies that that's like the first time that I saw Scarface. A bunch of movies that it's like maybe a kid shouldn't be watching these movies. And with Dogma, this was also in the rotation in those DVDs, and we liked it because Jay and Silent Bob were in it. Like
Sure.
we really didn't understand anything that was going on here. We just laughed whenever Jay said something wild. We always loved the scene where they beat up the kids with the hockey sticks.
Oh, so funny.
We
So good. I know,
loved that shit.
I know they were teenagers. We kicked their asses.
Yeah, we loved that so much.
Yeah, that's good. I not growing up a huge movie fan, like we were a popcorn flick family, like we had a movie theater popcorn machine in our living room, but we watched like Fast and Furious and Triple X, stuff like that. So I didn't really get my first taste of Kevin Smith until college. My roommate Zach was obsessed with films. He was one of the dudes that claims Citizen Kane is the greatest film ever made. So he was one of those dudes.
Pretentious.
Yes,
Crazy.
yeah, very much. But Kevin
That's
Smith was his
fine.
favorite director, and he showed me
Okay,
Clerks.
what a fucking okay. Oh my god. There's always this dickhead. There's always this dickhead in a film group who, and I might be that dickhead in our film group because I love movies and my favorite movie is The Princess Bride, right? But like to simultaneously say that Citizen Kane is the greatest movie of all time, and then to say that your favorite director is Kevin Smith, like there's something wrong in that statement.
Quite the oxymoron. Yeah.
Yeah. Emphasis in moron.
Yeah.
Fucking got him, Alex. I got him.
I hope he sees this. I really do. But yeah, he showed me Clerks, man, and I was like, dude, this movie rips. And so I've been trying to amass every movie made by Kevin Smith, right? And I've been obsessed with him when he goes on podcasts and stuff. I actually go salmon fishing every year with a guy that Kevin Smith officiated his wedding. So like, just trying to like, be the snobby movie fan. I'm trying to get all about, Kevin Smith. But like I was saying at the beginning, it was impossible to see this movie. Um, but finally, with the re-release, and I found it on DVD. I spent way too much money on the DVD, but I stumbled across Dogma, and I was not disappointed. So we're gonna steal something that you got that we do over on the Forest Film Club, and I want to look at some Rotten Tomatoes for this because I feel like this is kind of a polarizing film. It definitely was at the time. I mean, Kevin Smith attended his own protest for the movie. So I want to look at the Rotten Tomato scores. So
If I may, I like remember this coming out
sure.
like in stark detail. Like I remember this kind of being a big deal because this was right at like a weird cross section where like America as like the monoculture as we called it back then, right? The monoculture that was America was like just getting at the ass end of the like 70s, 80s satanic panic,
Hmm.
right? And with the devil being pushed out of music, the devil had to go to other places, and those other places were TVs and movies and comic books, right? And so to have a movie like this come out and the entire marketing campaign was like wildly like also like religiously attacking. So like this was a really big deal. Imagine you're like a stupid kid and you like don't really know what anything's about, but you know that it's a big deal that this like movie's coming out because it's all over the news, people being pissed off at it and protesting it. Um and then like my friend Tyler's mom gets it at Blockbuster, brings it home. And it's like who can be mad at Jay and Silent Bob? Like
Yeah.
totally don't get it.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy too. We'll get into it. It's pretty crazy how pertinent this movie still is, right? Almost 30 years later, like a lot of the stuff they're talking about is still, pretty prevalent in society, which is kind of sad and kind of surreal. So,
A really a prescient time to re-release it.
yeah.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
a prescient time. Yeah, that I was thinking that while rewatching it as well.
Yeah. So, yeah, if it's cool with you, I want to dive into a couple rotten reviews here. But
Mhm.
first, I'd like you to take a guess on what the audience and critic scores are for
Oh
Dogma.
God. Okay. The first things first is we always have to establish if the critics or the audience likes it more.
Hmm.
And this one's difficult because it is kind of an older movie at this point. 99 it came out. So does like a reassessment of its initial release like change its percentage? And if so, how much?
Yeah, and you have to think too. I mean, I'm assuming a lot of people after they saw the re-release, and it was released again at Cannes this year. It went back to Cannes as a classic film, which I believe they have to be like 50 years old, but they made an exception for Dogma, which is kind of cool. Um, so yeah, you're assuming a bunch of reviews had to have come in, recently as well. So
Okay, I'm going to say it's like a 64 critic score.
okay,
Yeah, 64. I'm saying low 60s. Low to mid 60s.
sure.
And I'm going to say like 75 maybe for audience score, little higher. Yeah. And I think, and I'm not giving either one of these like very high scores because I think in general Kevin Smith is hit and miss with most people.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So those people are gonna not vibe with it already. So yeah, I'm gonna say 60, early 60s and for critics, late 70s for audience.
You're actually off by a decent amount for both.
Let's
Um,
go.
so,
I love that.
so you were right. Audiences do like it more than critics, but they like it substantially more. So critics are at a 71, um,
Oh,
and
dang.
audiences are 85. That's a
That's good.
Yeah, that's pretty surprising, honestly.
That's very
That's
surprising to me.
yeah, yeah.
That's
What I
very surprising to me.
Yeah. I assumed before I pulled it up, the audience was probably in the 60s, and then yeah, kind of like you said, like maybe low 80s, high 70s, but Yeah, so there's only been 150 reviews by critics, but there's over 250,000 audience ratings. So,
That's insane.
yeah, this movie's big time, but it makes sense. Like I said, I mean, it came back out in theaters and made $1 million in one weekend. So people
Yeah.
really vibe with this movie to the point that Kevin Smith is writing a sequel now.
Yeah,
He,
but that's been in the talks for at least 15 years.
yeah, he's always talked about doing it, but now he's actually sitting down and physically writing it. And he still doesn't know if it's going to go anywhere. But at least it has a little bit of traction that it might. So I
Yeah, I mean
scanned through.
it's the only one of his big three that like never produced more, right?
Yeah.
Clerk got a couple sequels. Jay and Silent Bob got Jay and Silent Bob reboot,
Yep.
so it is kind of his biggest movie and most cultish movie, I think, to not get it. And I think I remember reading that he would call it Dogma Resurrection.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's funny in interviews and stuff. He's like, "Yeah, I never saw myself writing sequels and stuff, but I just released Clerks 3." So,
And that was like the other thing. Like Clerks 2 was to me and Tyler like superior to Clerks. Like we love
yeah,
Clerks 2. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I still kind of fuck with it because that like fast food and service industry has always been my jam. So like I relate to it a little bit more than the first one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I found a couple rotten reviews here. We have one from our friend James Vernier over at the Boston Herald. He says, at their best, his verbal exercises are pyrotechnical. At worst, they're logorrheic.
Logorrheic.
Hmm.
Wow. That must
He,
be how what's his name felt when he heard the term toyetic.
yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah, he paid a lot of money for that review.
But what he's saying there, like I get it. That was my big concern whenever I was thinking of like what kind of person would give this a high score,
Hmm.
right? Well, it would be somebody who doesn't mind large swaths of dialogue.
Right.
Kevin Smith was kind of like I want to say was, but he's been making movies at the same time. Him and Tarantino aren't too dissimilar in that aspect.
Sure.
They're both long-winded in their conversations that like really fill out the philosophy of their movies. It's a
Yeah,
skill. It's an art,
sure.
I think.
It's it's very much, a lot of tell don't show, right, in these. And typically that's not something I vibe with, but I do with Kevin Smith. I really do. It's funny, he talks about how guys like Tarantino, Scorsese, guys like that were put on this earth to make movies. He goes, I was just a movie fan that got lucky that my first movie took off so well. Like, but
Yeah, sure.
we all know how
And he
Seth,
was. I mean, that
yeah,
movie Clerks was made for like 50,000, something like that.
yeah, like nothing that he completely
Yeah.
funded himself, like and he's of that age too. Like for a long time, you didn't really know who the director of movies were, right? Like the huge film heads did, but like you couldn't talk to a casual movie fan and bring up a director and they knew who they were. But this wave
Yeah.
of guys like Tarantino, Kevin Smith, a lot of the marketing was, hey, go talk about your movie. And now they're household names. You can talk to anyone that's ever seen a movie and they know Tarantino's name. So,
Yeah, right at the era of like independent movies like kicking off. Because for a while there the big names were who ran the game and like now now it's rare. People don't people like know who a director is, but because every director is kind of the same caliber, it kind of doesn't matter. So like to have a couple of nobodies like Kevin Smith and Tarantino kind of come out of nowhere and take the film world by storm with just two movies. Tarantino, it's Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. With Kevin Smith, it's Clerks and Mallrats.
yeah.
And really kind of defined their generation with two movies, polar opposites, but still in like their construction similar.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. We have another short one here from Andrew Saris over at The Observer. And he says Dogma is more strained than funny. So doesn't,
Concise,
yeah.
concise.
I can understand not vibing with the comedy of this movie. I did, but I can understand not vibing with it.
I I don't know. I think it's more intentional than than that. Like, yeah, Jay and Silent Bob are like a couple of goofballs, but outside of them, it's not really like a ha ha movie,
Right.
you know? So I think that it's intentionally intentionally bland in that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then our last one here, Jeff Andrew over at Time Out. He says that this movie is too talky, too fond of in jokes, too caught up, especially during the dismally weak climax, in its crass comic strip ethos, and not, finally, as funny, subversive, or thought provoking as it would like to be.
My man's hitting a word count, that's for sure. Can I
Yeah.
ask when when was that review published?
2006.
Interesting.
Yeah. So 7 years after this.
I would love if there was like a thing on Rotten Tomatoes that allowed critics to like rewatch to like re-review the movie and put their original review and then like if he watched it this year, the 2025 review and see how different they are.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that on Letterboxd. Like I'll keep my original review and then I'll put like updated. Like I did that for The Monkey, right? I did my initial
Sure.
review and I was like, this movie sucked ass. So then I'm like, secondary review. Actually, it was logoraic and all that fancy shit.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a little hard to find negative reviews recently, so that should tell us something. But cool, man. Let's get into it. Dogma. It's considered a fantasy comedy film on Wikipedia, so that's something. How about a cast? Like wild cast for this movie, man. I mean, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were in this 2 years after Good Will Hunting.
I was thinking that while watching, like, what a crazy difference
Yeah,
this
right.
is for them. Like, and imagine being a moviegoer and seeing that. Like, this feels antithetical to the filmmakers they were becoming with Good Will Hunting.
Yeah. Well, and like you were telling me earlier today, right? Like when they were writing that, they offered the script to Kevin Smith to direct Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He turned it down correctly, uh,
Sure.
but ended up getting it into the hands of Miramax, which is where Heavy Weinstein found it and ended up giving it to Gus Van Sant, and that ended up becoming the Academy Award winning movie that it became. One of the truly great films of the '90s, right? And since then, they're kind of like loyal. I don't want to say stooges, but for lack of a better term, loyal stooges to Kevin Smith. They'll pretty much come in and do a cameo anytime they can. And Kevin Smith's one of those guys that like. And once again, this is something that I realized, watching Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back 100 million times. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back has like a crazy list of cameos in it itself.
Yeah.
And so like how Kevin Smith runs his game, I don't know, but I'm happy he's able to do it.
Very.
You know, you forget that George Carlin's the priest in the movie, right?
Yeah. Cardinal Carlin.
That's crazy, dude. You forget that like Alanis Morissette's in it, or that Selma Hayek's the stripper. Like,
Yeah, I know like with Kevin Smith, right? Like from people, so my buddy that knows him, like, has just been going to his theater in New Jersey forever, right? And Kevin Smith's one of those guys that if you're friends with him, he'll kind of go above and beyond for you. Like all of his friends in that friend group, he asked to be in his most recent movie. He's like, just come in, make a cameo, do whatever. So he obviously treats people right.
yeah, he's always seemed to be one of the more down to earth guys. I really liked his comic book like show that he had on Spike TV for a while. I remember watching that and being really enjoying my time with him.
Yeah. And I'm convinced the role of Rufus was written for Chris Rock. I can't imagine anyone else in that role. And Alan Rickman, like Alan Rickman being in this movie is kind of insane.
Alan Rickman is in is at this time, is that the biggest name that you could get for a movie done by Kevin Smith?
Probably.
You know, like just at that right time where he's like becoming Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
You know, um, what it does is it informs an audience of one, the skills of an actor to be able to do a multitude of different roles, such as, he's always such a great villain, and we will see that soon enough with the Harry Potter series that's coming out, soon after this.
Hmm.
And so often what people do is they say, "Oh man, that Severus Snape guy's really good. Who's that? Alan Rickman. Let's go see what other movies he's in."
Right.
You
Oh,
know,
this
and
guy
then
was in the best Christmas movie ever, Die Hard? That's crazy.
right. Yeah, absolutely. And so what that does is it one showcases your talent to be able to carry both kinds of roles, but it also shows that you're here for the fun of it.
Yeah.
That you're here to have a good time, and it just feels like he's having a good time.
This I would equate his role in this to pretty similar to his role in Galaxy Quest, right? Just the dude who's so sick of everyone's shit, going through the motions, doing what he has to do. Like they seem kind of similar roles to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. And something that's fun about this is it really, I think, showcases a like take on the religious figures, um and characters that that hadn't kind of really been seen before. Now because of shows like Supernatural,
Hmm.
there's this idea of like, well, maybe angels aren't these like beautiful, perfect beings.
Right.
But this came out way before Supernatural, and it's kind of doing the same shtick.
Yeah.
It's a really fun take on many things that's carried by a cast, and Alan Rickman in this is used just sparingly enough that it makes him really important.
Yeah. Very
You
much so.
know,
But cool, man. I mean, let's dive right into it, right? Like, I really, really enjoyed the opening disclosures. Just the multiple pages of disclosures really cracked me up. Um, Especially, the judgment is reserved for God, and that includes you, film critics. And then he just goes on and on about the platypus joke, which I thought was really funny. Um, it was cool for me and my wife to watch this too because it starts at Asbury Park, New Jersey, which is a little beach town. There's a really cool music venue there called the Stone Pony, which is basically right on the boardwalk. So we went to see a
okay.
concert there last year, and we were standing like there's an ice cream stand right where they beat the shit out of that guy. Um, and you can sit on the beach and like listen to the music. So that's a cool spot. So as soon as that came up, I was like, "Oh, I'm locked in. This is the most New Jersey thing I've ever seen."
Just to clarify, no old man got beat up by kids while you were there.
Not that I saw.
Not that you
Yeah.
know of. Could have
Yes.
happened.
It could have. Yeah, you never know. It is
Would have
Asbury
you
Park.
hopped in?
To help or to continue on the beating. If I knew it was
Well,
God, I'd probably would have continued on the beating.
okay. I think it would depend on what the old man did.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, we talked
Maybe, do you
about
ever think that do you think it could have been like a gang initiation? Maybe he was like trying to join their little group of
hockey club.
scallions. Yeah. and that's the code. You have to be beat up with hockey sticks for like 13 seconds.
At first, I assumed he was their coach and benched them, and they were getting back at him. Like,
Yeah, equally lucky, equally likely, equally likely.
but yeah, we get that just brief scene of the hockey players just beating the crap out of some random dude on the boardwalk, and then it jumps to a church, and we see our boy,
Surprisingly, surprisingly brutal, right?
very
Surprisingly violent.
brutal. Yeah, man, they
You know?
slam him up against the rail and just beat the hell out of him.
Yeah, yeah. Surprisingly brutal, and shocking having children do this. It's quite an effective opening.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so brief, right? Because then immediately, like, it goes to the church and Catholicism, wow.
Catholicism, wow. Classic stuff.
Yeah, it's great. And George Carlin is so good. Like, George Carlin is kind of who Kevin Smith talks about, inspired kind of his outlook on life, which is very funny to think about. Um, but yeah, I really enjoy George Carlin in film roles like this and Bill and Ted. I thought he was awesome.
Yeah, so like the thing about George Carlin is George Carlin never considered himself a comedian, right? He considered himself a philosopher.
Right.
And and that's what comedians are in his mind. And I love this take that the comedian is the modern day philosopher, right? And so it's so clear that you just said that. I didn't know that, but it's so clear now that you point that out because everything that Kevin Smith, all of his comedy movies are rife with intention, are rife with philosophy and meaning behind them, just like every one of George Carlin's jokes is. You
Yeah.
know, must have been really special to be able to have him in this role and have like Stanley and Mallrats and it just got to be surreal for somebody like Kevin Smith, right?
Yeah. No, it has to be a fan of things and be able to use them. Yeah, that's so awesome.
1992, trying to scrounge around and just barely get enough money to put together a black and white film you're making with your friends, and 5 years later, having your hero comedian be a cameo part in your religious movie. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, he's
That's
living the
incredible.
life, man. Living the life.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. And then we get the like if anyone has heard of this movie, they know Buddy Christ.
This is one of those things that you hear of Buddy Christ, even if you're not a fan of this movie.
Yeah.
There's got to be a whole slew of people who know this image, but don't know it's from this movie.
Well, I think
It's
it's a meme
ubiquitous.
too. Yeah, I think
No,
it's a meme
exactly,
of yeah.
exactly. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Uh,
Normally connected with something. Wow, you know, very
yeah.
good, dude. Just an
Yeah.
excellent statue.
Yeah, I really want one. Like I want one of those in front of my house. I think that'd be awesome.
I had a friend in college that had that as a bobblehead.
Oh, no kidding. That would be
Yeah,
awesome.
sick. It was sick.
Um, so yeah, the Cardinals talking about how they're trying to basically modernize, and rededicate the church. So they're getting away from the crucifixion because it's depressing. So they're moving to Buddy Christ. And then
Agree. I just
I
agree
mean,
with that. It's
yeah.
probably one of the more disappointing parts of the Bible. I think we should start talking about the crucifixion by putting spoiler alert because, like, what about the people reading the Bible for the first time?
One of my favorite jokes I make is like when someone's like, Jesus died for your sins. I'm like, dude, I didn't get that far yet.
Yeah, come on, dude.
I'm only in Matthew.
Yeah.
And then, so the reason I thought of you when I was watching this movie is this next scene. So we go to an airport and we see Matt Damon talking to a nun, and he's quoting The Walrus and the Carpenter. And immediately I was like, how is this
Oh
not
yeah.
Mundo's favorite movie?
Well, I'll tell you how is because it's been about 16, 17 years since I've seen it. But like, it was one of those movies that rewatching it, it was like, how is this dropped on my list of favorite things? Because this movie is so me.
Yeah, seriously. And it's funny too, because like despite so the character Loki, right, is Matt Damon. He's despite how much he's BSing this nun, what he's saying makes a lot of sense, right? Like comparing, the walrus and the carpenter, like the carpenter is Jesus because he was the son of a carpenter, and the walrus has the tusks after like the Hindu god and things like that. Like, and he's saying, what this showed you was if you put all of your faith in a deity, like bad things are gonna happen. Like great.
It's really fun because Kevin Smith is a very well read and well understood person, right? The Walrus and the Carpenter with Lewis Carroll is about bipartisan politics, right?
Hmm.
It's about having only two parties that try to represent the whole people. So what Loki is saying to this woman isn't inaccurate.
Right.
It's a general philosophy that is true. If one person, if there's only two options, they're both vying for you, and the thing that's hilarious about this is this woman doesn't look young. Like, he must have been talking to her for a long time. She
Yeah.
must have been part of that church for a while.
Yeah, and the line is so funny when they get over because you see Matt Damon then Bartleby like sitting and listening, and he just starts rolling his eyes, and the woman's like, "What have I been doing with my life? Like I've dedicated my entire life to this church. What have I been doing?" Yeah, really funny. So then we get kind of our, plot of the movie, right? So Loki and Bartleby, we find out, are two fallen angels. They've been banished from heaven, for something. We don't know what. Um, and Bartleby shows Loki a newspaper article about the church we were just seeing that it's rededicated. And he comes up with this plan that if they walk through the doors, they'll be blessed of all their sin. And then if they die, they can go to heaven as humans, right? They get rid of their wings and they can go to heaven as humans. So they found a loophole in God's banishment from them.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting lead in. Um what's so cool about this is, later on we get this character Rufus that comes in who claims to be the 13th apostle. No mention of Rufus or a 13th apostle, but just like that, there's no mention of Loki and Bartleby
Hmm.
in the Bible as well. So it's already kind of setting you up to how much of this is real and how much of this isn't real.
Right.
How much, because I think a viewer of I think this movie could have easily gone and these two guys are just like psychos, and
Sure.
and none of this is real. None of this is there's no true sight, there's no true magic or religion. This is about a bunch of people having mental breakdowns.
Yeah. And I would be completely here for a Matt Damon and Ben Affleck religious fanatic killing spree movie. Like I would be all here for
I'm here for it.
that.
I love those are some of the best parts of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this gives me one of my favorite lines in the movie, right? Because we don't know yet the significance of this, but they're talking about how Loki calls Bartleby anal retentive, and Bartleby goes, "You can't be anal retentive if you don't have an anus," which is
Yes.
much funnier on
Yes.
second watch.
Yes. That was one of the moments that as soon as he said that, I was like, oh yeah, here we go. And then
Yeah.
I I just love all the moments that they just like so willfully show that they don't have any reproductive organs. It's so funny.
I think Alan Rickman gives us our first taste of that too.
Right. And he just so casually shows that he doesn't have anything down there. It's so good.
He's like, all you people think about is we're trying to get in your knickers. He's like, even if I wanted to, I couldn't. But this also gives us the part where, Bartleby and Loki are getting in an elevator, and he's like, "Well, I'm going to do something that I think would make God happy." He goes, "Let's start killing people." And the lady is standing in between them is all scared, and they're like, "No, not you." Like,
Now, do you think not you because they are he isn't mentally prepared yet, or because she hasn't sinned?
So to me, it seemed like they weren't harming women, right? Like until the very end, like
It seemed like they would do whatever it could to not,
right.
right? Now, given the later conversations about like female exclusion in the church, uh do you think that do you think that there's deeper meaning behind that, or do you think that's just like a funny gag through the movie?
It's Kevin Smith, so I feel like there's deeper meaning to it, honestly. Like, but I couldn't tell you. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that it might be. I mean, let's see. Let me do a quick look here. At this point, 97, or 70, he's born. This comes out 99. He's not even 30 yet. I think he might be afraid of showing violence, like filming violence against women. I think that he might not feel comfortable doing
Yeah,
it. Yeah, that's the feeling that I got. That this was a guy who maybe didn't feel comfortable filming something like that.
sure. Yeah, because you get hints of it, right? Like the final scene, obviously, there's women that have been killed, and like, they threaten to kill Bethany, but like nothing happens to her. So
Yeah, one of
yeah.
my favorite moments in the movie is whenever he almost shoots the woman in the face for not saying "God bless you" when he sneezed. That's always one of my favorite moments. It's so funny to me. You
Yeah,
didn't
'cause
say "God bless you" when I sneezed.
you're getting off light. Like,
Yeah, very funny.
yeah, but then we quick fire get two more. They're not. I mean, they weren't huge name actors then, but bigger name actors like Jason Lee shows up, and he's kind of our antagonist of the movie. And Alan Rickman. And the Alan Rickman scene is so funny because it's like the burning bush, right, in Bethany's room. So Bethany is this Catholic woman who, was unable to reproduce, like she couldn't have kids, so now she works at an abortion clinic. And that's kind of the gag is like she's a Catholic, but she works at an abortion clinic. And so
Yes.
she goes to sleep and she has like the Moses burning bush moment where this guy, this fire starts in her room and it's this guy trying to talk to her in this booming God voice. And she uses a fire extinguisher and just puts the fire out. And yeah, it's Alan Rickman. And it's Metatron. So he is the voice of God. So he says, anytime someone says, hey, God was talking to me, this is a funny bit. He's like, it was either me or they were talking to themselves. He's like, one of the two. But she goes, what are you? And he's like, I'm pissed off. That's what I am. He's like,
I love I love a fed up religious figure.
yeah.
You know, I love a religious figure who just seems over it.
Yeah. I've been living by this doctrine my entire life. Like, I'm tired of it. Um, but he gives her her quest, right? He's like, we need you to go to this church and prevent two angels from entering, and that's basically the gist of it. And she says, why me? Like he says it's because of who you are. And she goes, well, who am I? He's like, the girl in the pajamas. Stop asking questions.
Yeah,
Like,
geez, dude. Like, can you not?
because this tells me, since he's been doing this since the beginning
She's
of
like an
time.
early Luke Skywalker. But I want to
Yeah.
go down to the power station, pick up a power converter. Like, just go, dude.
Just do what I'm telling you to do. Like, but
Yeah, like
he's like,
listen, I'm not religious at all, but something like this happens to me, and I'm automatically going to church every Sunday. Like, this is
yeah,
undeniable proof that I experienced it.
right. Yeah, I mean the snap of a finger, and she's out of her room and at a tequila joint. And Brie asked me, we were watching it. She goes, "Is she still like no pants on, just in the middle of this restaurant?" Probably. You can't tell, but probably. So yeah, he gives her this quest, right? And he's like, "But I can't make you do it." He goes, "But if you choose to do it, you won't be alone. You'll have two prophets with you. You'll have one who, even when you don't want him to talk, will talk a whole lot, and you have one who doesn't talk at all." And anyone who knows Kevin Smith knows exactly who he's talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, then we have that moment with, she's leaving work, getting in her car, and she gets attacked by those same hooligans with hockey sticks from the beginning of the movie. And Jay and Silent Bob show up and beat the hell out of them. And it's such a funny gag because she's like trying to figure out who they are. And she's like, "You're not protesters, are you?" They're like, "No, we hang out at abortion clinics to get laid because you figure girls that come here like to fuck."
Dude, reprehensible. Reprehensible to have Jay there. And this is like where Kevin Smith is like so good with his social commentary and like political comedy, right? To have a character who says, me and Lunchbox here are pro-life. A woman's body is to do is with what her choice is, right? No, we're here to hit up floozies because if you're getting rid of a baby, that means you're down. Like to have a character say both of those things is crazy.
And it has to be Jason Mewes. Had to. Like
It has to be Jason Mewes. It has to be Jason Mewes. The weirdest dude ever.
Yeah, and I was telling you this earlier today. Like, it was a story I heard that Kevin Smith told Jason Mewes with this. He's like, "Hey, man, Alan Rickman's in this movie, so you need to be on like your best behavior and know all of your lines. Like, you have to come in here ready to roll."
That's so. You told me that earlier. That's so hilarious. That just feels so right for him.
Yeah. And it didn't we were talking about this a little earlier with you, but it's the same thing with me. It didn't click with me right away watching these movies that Silent Bob was Kevin Smith, like the director of the movie.
Yeah, I just once again I was more of a Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back kind of guy, and
Yeah.
so like the same thing. This was nuts. It's
Yeah.
so weird because you don't because like out of everyone, like Silent Bob seems like the most minuscule one. So like it's a weird disconnect whenever you figure that out and you're 12 hearing it for the first time. It's kind of hard to associate that the meekest guy in the movie is the boss of everybody.
Yeah. I
Funny.
do feel like there was a decent amount of Deus Ex director in this movie though. Like he seemed to be like the superhero more than, I've seen in other movies. Because there's a couple moments that it's just like, "Oh, the we're going to move forward the action and plot by Silent Bob doing some crazy shit to defeat a demon."
Okay, so the thing with that, I hear this what you're saying. What it more is to me is it's something that like Silent Bob is the most capable one here, but because he doesn't speak, nobody puts any major jobs upon him. That's
Sure.
really like his skill is he's able to perpetuate an aura of laziness
Yeah.
when in reality he could probably do all of this on his own.
Sure.
And having him step in, one, it's a fun gag because
Hmm.
the fat guy coming in to save the day. It's a fun gag. It's clever, right? Um, and two, yeah, it is kind of funny to have it be the director who's making himself do it. It is, it's fun on two fronts. I really like it. It's a fun little a trick that I don't really think other directors do to themselves, unless if they themselves are the hero of the movie.
Yeah, like William Wallace and The Patriot, like something like that, where it's the whole point is the
Right. Clint
director is
Eastwood
the
does it to a
hero.
lot of him. Yeah. Yeah. That's a perfect example. Yeah. Yeah. What do you
Yeah,
think of The Patriot?
I think it rips. I like The Patriot a
Yeah.
lot.
I
I
think it
think I
rips.
like
I
it.
don't give a fuck.
I think I like it more than Braveheart, honestly.
Oh, I undoubtedly like him more than Braveheart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the Patriot.
I'll never forget, dude. That was the first movie I ever had on Blu-ray. And every time I went to my grandpa's, I had that on Blu-ray and MotorStorm on PlayStation. And I would sit and eat mac and cheese from our local place down the street. So every time I watched The Patriot, I taste mac and cheese.
Ah, good memory. Love that
Yeah,
memory.
dude.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
Sensory memories are great.
Love that. I love that. Love that so much.
So yeah, Bethany like hears them talking about how they're gonna go back to New Jersey and make a profit. And she hears the word profit and it clicks in her head. She's like, no fucking way. Like, not these two guys.
You hear Alan Rickman's voice in her head, profit, a profit, a profit.
So then she stops them and they go to a diner and she's trying to convince them like to take, her with them to New Jersey. And the whole time Jason Mewes is just like, "So are we gonna fuck? Like we saved your life. Are we gonna fuck now? Or
Oh
do you have
my God, dude.
do you have a
Oh
friend
my
or are you just
God.
gonna fuck me and Silent Bob together?"
You know. It's saying stuff like that Jason Mewes, like with the seriousness that he has, is just crazy.
But it's like
My
we talked
favorite,
about, right? Like it's
yeah,
if he wanted to be a serious actor and like a big time actor, he could have been.
yeah. It's a shame that I think substance abuse is the real problem with all of that because I just feel like he's so funny and so quick.
Yeah.
He says everything with that. Yeah, I understand people's love of Jim Carrey and Adam Sandler, but I'm like more of a Jason Bateman kind of guy.
Yeah.
I like my comedic characters who says like the most outlandish thing, but with like the seriousness and conviction of
Yeah.
somebody ordering potato salad. You
Yeah.
know,
And he,
that's my
he
kind of comedy.
and he hits her in this moment too with like, all right, let's say everything's gonna explode and there's 5 minutes to live. Would you have sex with us? She goes, in that very obscure instance, sure. So that's gonna come back. At some point that's gonna happen.
Well, and the movie itself is kind of like framed Bethany as kind of a flirt, anyways. Like
Yeah,
up until this point, even whenever she says sure to him, she kind of has like a little naughty smirk on her face.
yeah, for
you know,
sure. Yeah.
there's to me, it's her being like, it's not that I wouldn't, it's that I can't right now.
Yeah, exactly. I can't stray from my mission.
Right, right.
So they get in the car, they start heading back to New Jersey, and Jason Mewes is just like has no idea how to drive a stick. And so she hits him with, "What gear are you in?" He goes, "Gear," and the engine explodes.
Always a great joke.
Yeah.
Will never not be funny.
So,
To
while it's
me, that's
broke.
as classic as the Flintstones bird going, "It's a living," like always funny when somebody doesn't know that they're driving and I'm one of them. I don't know how to drive a manual. I can't do it.
Yeah.
That'd be me.
So,
But this leads to a really funny moment where they're like arguing on the side of the road, and Jay says something about all a person who could solve all their problems just falling from the sky. At which point somebody does, and then he's like, "Big titty woman falling from the sky."
yeah. Yeah, that's a great bit. And it's really funny too because it's just naked Chris Rock just laying in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember. Oh, Rufus. Yeah, Rufus. So, it's he has a
Yeah, the
very
13th apostle, Rufus. Very big Life of Clarence vibe from him.
yes, very much so. And it's so funny too because like he's telling them what his name is and he goes, "It's usually Long Rufus, but it's pretty cold out here. You know how it is."
But
Um And he has
Now,
a lot of
it's important to note that at this point, like Chris Rock is not the Rock that he becomes.
right.
He at this time is probably a little more famous for the Chris Rock show, which is a early progenitor of um like the Chappelle show when
Hmm.
Dimitri Martin's whatever that was a lot Amy Schumer, right? It's the progenitor of like comedians who have their own skit shows. He had a really decent couple episodes of in Living Color, which if nobody out there has seen In Living Color, what are you doing with yourselves? It's really like the essential 90s skit show, and all of your favorite 90s actors come from it. I'm talking about like Chris Rock, Jamie Foxx, Jim Carrey's from there, David Allen Gear, Jennifer Lopez was a dancer, Fly Girl on there, Rosie Perez. I mean, everybody. Steve Chan. He's an Asian guy in a bunch of your favorite movies you don't even know about, right? They're all from In Living Color, and it's only a little bit after this that um we really get the Chris Rock of the future, right? A couple years after this is whenever like Rush Hour comes out, The Longest Yard. A lot of his great movies are yet to come, and so to see him at such an early stage of his life, kind of being a different kind of character that he's known to be, is really interesting here.
Yeah. And it's like I said at the beginning, I mean, I feel like this role was written for him because it's like it's so much comedy, but he's also got like some really deep shit that he talks about. Like very deep. Like I think there's two characters in this movie that really embody how Kevin Smith feels about Catholicism. Because like I believe he was a part of the church until he was 18. Um
Sure.
and Chris Rock, he has the line where he's talking about like the fact that he's not included in the Bible because he was black, right? And so they take him out, and then Jesus was also black, but they can change that because without him, you have no New Testament. And
Right.
and Bethany says, well, if all the facts aren't right, that's okay as long as the story is, and like people have that faith. And he says the line that the people that build their faith on those things should be colorblind. And that's still applicable, man. Like for a very long time, like black people couldn't be prominent in the church. Women weren't allowed to be prominent. I remember when I was a teenager in town here, it was like the scuttlebuss that a woman was a pastor. Like she wasn't allowed to officiate weddings or like anything. So like
Oh yeah.
I know this movie came out in 99, but like even in the early like 2010s and things like that, like it was still pretty prevalent. So it's crazy how much this.
Way progressive for its time. It's way progressive for its time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing about Kevin Smith that sets him apart from a lot of writers is there's a quote, right? Um and that quote is what is it? Screenwriters who use subtext are cowards. And that's kind of like Kevin Smith. That's I kept on thinking that while watching this movie. Was he is saying everything just outright. There's no like fluffy language that he's putting out on it. It's all of his characters just saying harsh, dramatic statements about, frankly, attacking this one religious cult. And they're using nothing to punch it up. It's just base opinion, and it's like, damn, like if I was a Catholic watching this movie, I could easily see myself being offended by it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and they were, very much so. Um, you know,
Condemned, I think.
yeah, yeah. This
Yeah, I
gives
think
us
it was
this
like
gives us
officially condemned.
this might be the funniest thing Jason Mewes says in the entire movie because, like, Rufus is telling all these things about Bethany. Like when she was 5 years old, she let her neighbor pee on her hands and all these things to prove that he's from heaven and all everything about her is documented. And
Oh my God, this was so funny. This was so funny.
Jay goes, "All right, tell me something about myself that no one would know." And he goes, "You masturbate more than any human on the planet." He goes, "Yeah, everyone knows that. Tell me something else." And he goes, "It's usually to guys or thinking about guys."
Yeah, whenever you have sex, you think of men.
And Silent Bob gives him a look, and he's like, "Not every time." Like,
Not every time. Not every time is nuts.
it's just
You
his
know?
delivery of it, dude. Like it's so funny. But then we immediately snap into Jay and Silent Bob are gone, and Bethany's like, "Where are they?" And they're at a strip joint. And Bethany walks in. She goes, "What are you guys doing?" And Jay's like, "I'm trying to prove to Lunchbox that I'm not gay."
Proves it. Just being in a strip club proves it. Amazing.
And that stripper auction was so funny, dude. Like it to me it was the Tarantino with Selma Hayek in From Dusk Till Dawn with the alcohol down her leg. That's what that was with the Kevin Smith, like continually pulling out money so she danced for him.
And like having like the group of guys there trying to buy it out, having a problem arise between them, but then having them all be homies is just a stroke of genius.
Yeah. That, that's really funny. And while this is going on, we snap back to Loki and Barnaby. And they're at a or Bartleby, not Barnaby. Barnaby was my D&D character. But Bartleby. They're in this boardroom and it's very funny because like they're sitting in the corner. The boardroom guys are talking about all the profits they made from overnight on their TV show or whatever. And then he's like, "Do you smell onions?" And you just see Loki carving something out of an onion. And it goes on this pretty intense, like anxiety driven, scene of Bartleby walking around and telling each individual person what their sins are and why they're a bad person. And this is where I said about the idea of these guys being religious fanatics that are just killing people that go against God's will, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. But anyone can be a fanatic until you start listing off things as specific as what they said.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the thing that I really liked about this is that everything was drastic,
Right.
right? Because I feel like it's really easy for a filmmaker to have characters like these who the thing is that at first you want your audience to believe that these guys are looking for any reason to kill,
Right.
right? But instead, these are very legitimate problems. These are, it's adultery and manslaughter and thievery, like really, really bad things that ruined or ended other people's existence,
Yeah.
right? And to have them go not do something like you litter on your way to work every day. Like that's an easy joke to make, but it's good that that wasn't made because it shows that there is a conscience to at least one of them.
Yeah. And they do make that joke at the end with the sneezing thing, right? But I thought watching this, like with it coming out in 1999, I thought it was brave to have one of the dudes in the boardroom that his sin was disowning his gay son. Like these are two angels from God that represent like, this religion that is against homosexuality and the sin this guy died for was disowning his, homosexual son.
Yeah, especially the Catholic Church, which, still condemns the gay community. And like I said, dude, it's a hell of a progressive movie in 99.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
hell of a progressive movie in 99.
And then, after Bartleby lists off all their crimes, like Loki talks about a voodoo, he's talking about voodooism. And, it's pretty anxiety driven. He's like, if I believed in voodoo, if I just squash this, like you would die. And they have the moment where it's like, oh my God, he's going to do it. And they all believe him. And he squishes it and he goes, I don't believe in that shit. He's like, voodoo? I don't believe in that. And he walks out, but that leads to the great line of him walking back in. He's like, but I do believe in this, and just starts shooting them all.
Bop, bop, bop. Really fun stuff.
Yeah, especially with Bartleby sitting outside, and he's like, I do believe in this. What does that mean? Like, what is he saying? Um, so then we snap back to the strip club. We find out that the stripper is a muse, right, from heaven. So not really a woman, which I thought was very funny because she's like, well, weren't those boobs I saw Jay nestling up with? And she's like, you should know above anyone, boobs do not make a woman. But then we get, and I thought this was so creative, and I'd love to know if this is lore or just something that Kevin Smith made up. Um, the Golgathon thing, like the shit demon, like the idea that this demon was created because all the people that were crucified the same place Jesus would shit themselves, like, and they were all evil people, so it created like hell's ultimate assassin, who's a shit demon.
Hilarious that they say ultimate assassin.
Yeah.
Right. Hilarious for that. I can't imagine that is accurate in any way. Uh, I wouldn't know, but it does remind me of the character Shithead from the comic series Wanted.
Okay.
Um, it's a science experiment, and he's just like this, right? Except he's compiled from the shit of the 666 most evil people who've ever existed.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, shithead is cool.
And this is one of the moments we were talking about where, Silent Bob saves the day just by spraying the Golgathon with Febreze because it knocks out odor. And then they have the quick gag, the Jay farts, and he gets sprayed with the Febreze too. Um, so, after this, they're still trying to get their way to New Jersey, but they're on a train. Meanwhile, Loki and Bartleby, because they've been spending so much time killing people, miss their bus to New Jersey. So we're not sure how they're going to get there. And sure enough, on the train, all of our characters meet up, right? And Jay and Silent Bob are talking to these two guys, Larry and Barry.
I think this is a really effective reveal.
Yeah, me too.
You know, it's universal irony whenever something is going on that the audience is aware of that the characters on the screen aren't aware of, and to have uh, uh, our girl, what's her name,
Bethany.
Bethany, kind of having like a flirty little conversation
Yeah,
with Barry, as he's being called, not knowing the full context of what's going on.
yeah.
Really nerve wracking to kind of watch that, and I bet for the first time, was it nerve wracking? Like, were you like, oh shit?
Oh yeah, no, I was, especially because we missed it, right? But right before this, Jace Lee's character Azrael tells Bartleby and Loki that hey, they've found the last Scion, and she's supposed to like kill you guys and prevent you from getting there. So as
Yeah,
Bethany's flirting with Bartleby, she's telling him that she's the woman that's going to be doing this. So it was pretty nerve wracking. It was cool too to see Chris Rock like waking up, like Rufus is waking up from whatever he was doing and walking in, and yeah, that big reveal. That they're the angels that she's been looking for.
yeah, yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah,
And then it's the other side of the violence against women thing, right? Then to have uh Bartleby like immediately put her in a chokehold and like threatening to slice her up with some broken glass. Like all of a sudden that it becomes even more violent because this is the first time that we're seeing them go to that length against a woman.
Yeah. You also see the shift in characters now, right? Because, to me, it's like Loki's the crazy one, Bartleby's more of the even keel, like we're doing things for a reason. In this moment, Bartleby's like, kill her. And Loki goes, dude, you know I can't kill her if she hasn't done anything wrong.
Yeah.
And Bartleby's like, fine, I'll do it then. And we get arguably some of the worst fight choreography I've ever seen in this moment.
Well, we already saw some of that with the beating up the kids earlier. Um, Kevin Smith, okay, he's not a action director.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
We do see a good punch from Matt Damon. He has a good punch on Jason Mewes' character.
and then, but it also kind of ends with like a classic like one liner,
Yeah.
like
And the Looney
action movie
Tunes
one
thing,
liner.
like,
Yeah,
yeah.
wiping your hands of it and then looking down at the guy. Having it revealed that there was just a dude sitting in the corner watching this whole thing, like and not intervening or getting in harm's way in any way was
Yeah.
like so funny.
Yeah, and then Silent Bob's first lines of the movie where he's just like, no ticket. Yeah, that's good. But that's enough.
I was like, dude, if I was that guy, I would be like, or the that has to be the mushrooms kicking in.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But that's another moment that I was talking about with like Silent Bob, like being the dude saving the day. Like he's the one that threw both the angels out the back of the train.
Yes.
So, um, but yeah, so they're still kind of going on their way at this point.
Well, and then this does build up to something, right? We'll talk about what it builds up to later, but it
Yeah,
does build up, right? It is it I see the vision of it being it the thing with like having a character be like Silent Bob here is for it to not be wasted come the end, and it doesn't go wasted by the end.
right.
You know, yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah. And then we go to, I feel like at least listening to the big picture and stuff, this is one of the more iconic scenes in the movie. It's Bartleby and Loki in the parking garage. And Loki's just kind of like, "Hey man, I don't know if we should do this anymore. Like you heard what Rufus said. He said that if we do this, there's going to be huge consequences." And Bartleby just has his complete snap, saying all these things like he's like, I finally figured out what it is. He's like, God created us first to completely serve him. Then he created humans and he gave them a choice whether they could follow him or not. And he's like, and now we're being punished for this, basically.
Yeah. Um, and once more, like these are heavy themes that maybe the Twilight Zone and other fantasy and science fiction properties deal with and talk about. Um, but nothing with like stars of this caliber, nothing with a production of this caliber. This it is really heavy stuff to put in your movie, and once again, just told in a way that is separated from the normal way that we hear these kinds of stories being told.
Right.
You know, and to have Bartleby, I mean, if you're really thinking about it, Bartleby wants to suffer because he's been suffering. He wants to cause eternal suffering because he doesn't want to take responsibility for his own actions.
Right.
And he sees all of these other people, to him, making an even greater mistake and not believing in God, right? They should be punished just like he's been punished.
Yeah.
But he still cannot accept that he put himself in this position by convincing Loki to put down his sword.
Right. Yeah, he's these people that he helped save are now the reason he's suffering, you know?
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. A really cool way of taking this.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of disgraced disgraced British author Neil Gaiman kind of takes this in the opposite way with him and Terry Pratchett's book The Good Omens.
Okay.
Uh, really good read if you don't mind. I mean, you get it secondhand, so you're not giving that piece of scum any money. Um, but if you're able to get it on like a secondhand bookstore or something, help out a local business. Good Omens is a really good book, and it kind of takes us the opposite way with a couple of angels who, well, there's an angel and a demon, and they have been living on Earth for the last like 1,000 years, and they love it. They think it's like the coolest thing in the world, and so they try to prevent the apocalypse from happening because they think Earth is fun.
Mm. Is that, didn't they make
You
an
know,
Amazon show
they
about
did,
that?
they did.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the second season, but I really liked the first season, and I even heard that the second season was even better. Even
Nice.
though I didn't watch it. Yeah, big fan of Good Omens. Not a fan of the stuff that the author did.
Yeah, that happens. Probably more than you know.
Yeah, you're almost for sure correct. He
So,
says that happens.
um, so this is where, this is probably the one part of the movie I don't really vibe with. So we'll see if like you can lawyer me in a different direction. But Bethany and all the other survivors are sitting around a campfire, and it's finally told to Bethany who she is. She's the last scion because she's the great 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 grand niece of Jesus,
Yes.
yeah. Um, and she has a break. Like it seems like the whole time she's been joking and like okay and stuff, and then she just goes. To me, she went from 0 to 100 in like a split second, and she just has like a complete psychotic break and starts screaming at God, freaking out about it.
Um, I think this is correlated directly to how much you think that she still thinks that this isn't real before that conversation,
Sure.
right? Because I think while I'm with you, to me, all of this being real should have already been accepted by her,
Right.
right? And once that happens, like there's really nothing that they could tell you that should be a surprise anymore.
Sure.
They just proved all of your doubts wrong.
Yeah.
And for all intents and purposes, like anything that they tell you that should surprise you should just be like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like I'm the progenitor of Christ. You
Yeah.
know, you already proved to me God exists, so why not?
and, and shit demons, you know.
And shit demons, dude. A shit the chief assassin of hell being a shit demon is way more surprising than being told that you're the great grandniece of Jesus. Okay? Like that's way more unreasonable.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's why I didn't vibe with it. I feel like it should have happened more, and maybe a different actress could have conveyed that to me better, But to me, it felt like it was just a very abrupt snap to just get us to the next point of the movie, where the Alan Rickman character comes
It's
back.
less okay, so it's less about um I think it's less about her being the last grandniece of Jesus, but it's really once again just like this idea that everything about her that she knew about herself is wrong.
Sure.
And this includes and is mostly encapsulated around how much of a failure she thinks she is. Because if she is the last surviving descendant of Christ, then that means that all the pain that she suffered, she shouldn't have suffered through, and all the negative things that she told about herself, she could also be wrong about,
Yeah.
right? And then so to have that happen, um, and then to have her run into the water and be reassured once again by Metatron, who's like, "Hey, like this is like your defining moment."
Hmm.
and the world needs you. You can't turn your back on it. It's really gets us to a moment where she has accepted herself as the important person that she doesn't feel like she is.
Yeah,
She has that reaction because she thinks the world deserves a better savior.
that's
It's
fair.
less about
Yeah.
her being the savior.
Yeah, that's fair. And Metatron tried that with her earlier too, because he's talking about, because she's, the pain we're talking about. She like, I couldn't have a child. Where was God when that happened? Where was God when my husband left? And he's like, you're gonna let all of existence vaporize because like of a little disease you had? He's like, you have the opportunity to be the mother of the earth and save her. Like,
Yeah,
do that,
right. Yeah, and if she doesn't feel like she is, and she feels like if this is true, then the earth is doomed. Then the earth is truly doomed.
Sure.
So well, I
Yeah.
can I do kind of see it. I wish that she showed more doubt about it throughout. I wish that she I'm gonna try to Patrick this. She should have throughout the movie been more like jokey and sarcastic about saving the world.
Yeah, other than just that, I think maybe that's my problem is the immediate lead up, because she was just sitting and
Right.
joking and trying to flirt with this dude about, oh, I'm going to kill the angels and going like this, to immediately finding out these are the two angels she was sent there to take care of. Like, and then to immediately lead into this scene is kind of wild to me.
Yeah. That's almost like out of order.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. But anyhow, Metatron comes back, like you said, and is, tells her that the real reason he went and got her is because they can't find God. So, because God has this tendency to once a year go down to Earth and start playing skee ball. And he's gone missing.
Okay, but this is also an interesting thing because like historically there's this myth that one day a year a Roman emperor would dress as a plebeian and go as a beggar on the streets to get a better view of what their general city and what their general people are like. And so to have a god that wants to do that but focuses it around skee ball is hilarious. I have a
Yeah.
really funny skee ball story.
I'm so ready.
So I went to a fair with actually that same guy, Tyler. And Tyler, we're at this fair, and the entire time that we're there, walking around, he just keeps on asking me for money so he can go and play skee ball. And I'm like, motherfucker, you should have brought money for skee ball then. Don't make me fund your skee bonus because I don't want to waste $5. And he's like, no, dude, I'm really good at skee ball. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm not going to give you $5 to waste on skee ball. And mind you, Alex, that this is a guy that I've known since I was like 6.
Sure.
We're now 18 years old walking around a fair. I've known this kid his entire life and never one time saw him play a game of skee ball. And so no, I'm not gonna give him $5, and he just keeps on pestering me, and eventually he's like, "Come on, like if I do really good, I'll let you pick. I'll let you pick out the thing, and you can keep it." And I was like, "Fine, you know
The
what? Fuck it,
prize.
Tyler. Yeah, like fine. If you promise me the prize, we can go." And I like distinctly remember telling him we can go waste $5 playing skee ball, right? Alex, didn't that motherfucker make a new high score on that game?
No way.
Dude, I sunk it. Every one. And I was standing there like mouth agape. We're there with our friends, like, are you guys seeing this?
That's such a weird skill to have. Like,
I was I was flabbergasted. Next thing you know, I'm driving home with a giant Rasta banana.
I I do about the skee ball thing too. Like I'm sure you can't remember the first time you watched this movie, right? But for me, yesterday was the first time I've seen this film. And the way that because of you and being on the podcast and things, the way I watch movies, that conversation about God immediately clued me in that it's probably the dude from the very beginning.
Of course.
Because I know it's the boardwalk arcade games. It clues into who that person is. I know that they're the bad guys. I'm like, it has to be something doing with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's at first the movie sets it up as a semblance of like the evilness that this angel that this demon can possess the children with.
right.
Right?
And are they
It's
actually demons, or I think they are? Are they little demons, or are they just possessed kids? I don't
I
know.
think they're possessed kids. I'm almost
Okay.
positive they're just possessed kids because the
Okay.
one kills their mom.
Oh, was it their mom? Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense. I thought it was just a random lady, but it makes sense he was in the house if it was his mom. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, I think they're possessed. Though they could be. I mean, who cares, right? That's
Yeah.
like
Who
the
cares?
best
Yeah.
kind of. That's like the best kind of mystery in a movie, kind of,
Yeah.
right?
You
Like,
don't have to tell me, you know?
yeah, it's fine. I really couldn't care less about if they're children or demons because the semblance of evil is what matters here,
Right. Right.
right? The depravity that it could be possession is scary.
Yeah. Yeah, and you
Yeah.
know too, it clues you into how scary the Golgothan is, because when he brings up to them that they couldn't hurt her, like he'll call in the Golgothan, you see all the kids like terrified. They're like, "Oh no."
Yeah, always a big fan of somebody calling in something because their current henchmen aren't good enough.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Like Minecraft when they call in the big pig, you know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's
Every
exactly like in Minecraft. Everyone
every
knows that. Everyone
every
knows that.
every podcast goes back to the Minecraft movie. That's why it's right behind my head. Um, so yeah, Jay comes up with the idea that he's like, well, what if we just convince the cardinal to not have the rededication ceremony? Like maybe that would work, and then they can't do it. And they're like, you know what? That's actually not a terrible idea. Let's try that.
It's so funny to me, right? Because that's like something that would be in like a pitch meeting.
Yeah, right.
Well, why don't they go just ask if they don't can't have the event on that day? Because, right?
Because we can't. Yeah.
Yeah, but this movie's brave enough to go ask the priest.
It's either brave enough or it just wanted to give George Carlin a second scene. I'm probably going with the latter.
And you know what? We're happy for it.
Yeah, it's very good. He's using like the chalice they use for communion, and he's playing golf, mini golf in his office with it. And yeah, they try to convince him like to cancel the event, and he's just like, "I'm not doing it. I'm not canceling this. Like it's still gonna go on." Um, and but it's very funny because Jay steals one of his golf clubs, which will turn out to be important later. I thought it was just a gag when I saw it the first time. Um, so they figure out
that's
basically
the that's the best kind of surprise, right?
yeah.
It's the thing that you don't expect it to be.
Well, and that's the big thing. Like, it's been a long time since I watched other Kevin Smith movies, but like this movie specifically, everything matters. Everything they talk about, everything they do, like it all matters to the plot.
It's like
Which
it's a real movie.
yeah,
You know, not to say that his other movies aren't real movies, but like they're all so like bottle nosed and all about like having loose circular conversation.
right.
Like this is a movie that has foreshadowing.
Hmm.
You know, it has motifs, it has themes.
Yeah,
It's a real it could be considered a real piece of art.
yeah, for
Dogma can.
sure. I mean, I was talking, there was a guy here yesterday that I watched the movie with him, one of my wife's friends, and he was telling me how much he likes Kevin Smith. And after the movie, I looked at him and I said, I know that Clerks is considered Kevin Smith's like iconic film. To me, Dogma is his masterpiece. I really
Yeah,
think
it's
that.
hard to deny that. It's hard to not see it that way, I think, because it's just such a it's a treasure.
Yeah.
It makes you think of the Christian religion and the characters in the Bible in ways that you don't really think about them in.
Yeah.
And it does it through characters that aren't in the Bible.
Right.
This 13th apostle and the banished angels. And then to have things in it like the golf club or the old guy getting beaten up in the beginning, like those are that's true craft of storytelling.
Yeah. Could you
It's true
argue
craft.
could you argue this is kind of a feminist movie too? I mean, especially like the conversation the Muse has with them talking about, you know, you know how it is with women in the Bible, like they're always doing the bad things, right? Like the woman is the reason, like I don't know, 100 different things happened in the Bible that were not good.
If this movie came out today, it would be so attacked by the right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If this movie came out today, it would be so attacked by the right. It would be called pandering and woke, right?
Yeah.
Well, I say it all the time. I love being woke because that means I'm not asleep, right?
Right.
These are important things, and these are important messages, and these are important analyses that must be, if not corrected, then at least discussed as an evolving culture.
Sure. But yeah, we're on the home
And then
stretch
to
now,
have
right?
this whole idea that the Bible, the supposed word of God, is infallible, but God Himself, herself,
Yeah, herself, yeah.
must be infallible.
And that's a good line too, because she's like, the muse is talking about how God's a woman, and Bethany's like, God's a woman? She goes, was there ever a doubt in your mind? Like,
And in
oh,
some Islamic sects, I think Allah is referred to Allah herself.
sure. I mean, I'm assuming that stems from like Mother Earth and things like that, but who
Right.
knows? Um, but yeah, so they decide, hey, their only option is to keep the angels out of the church. But that moment, Azrael and the triplets show up and keep them captive in a bar, trying to keep them from doing so. And this is when we get so, when we were talking about the beginning with Loki and Bartleby finding out about going to this church of the rededication, they had been sent just a random news clipping and they didn't know who it was from. Turns out it was Azrael that sent it to them, because he's trying to end all existence. Um, so it's a very cool scene because they're trying to figure out how to escape, and Bob, the Muse looks at Bob and is like, use the golf club and hit him, and Azrael's like, you know what? Do it. He's like, I'm a demon. What are you gonna do to me? Give me your best shot. And he does. And it splits him open because they said that the cardinal was like so full of himself that he would have blessed his clubs to give himself a better golf round.
Great reveal. And I remember watching because in my memory, like you see him do that. Like
Yeah.
earlier in the movie, you see him. So I was like waiting this whole time for it. Then I was like, oh, that must just be a made up scene.
Yeah.
It's not in this movie at all.
But it could have been.
But it could have been, right.
Yeah. Yeah, so he hits him, and then uh, Bethany goes over and she blesses the three base sink, right, for it to be holy water, and they put the demons' heads in all the triplets, and all the triplets die.
Yes, yes, they do.
So, very,
Dogma, not afraid to murder kids.
yeah, thank you. More kids should die in movies like Sinister or Wolfman.
or Wolfman.
Yeah.
And I
Why
love
can't
it.
we hurt the
Love
kid?
a love a good movie that will do that.
Yeah, but while this is going on, the rededication ceremony is also happening, and Bartleby and Loki show up and just start killing everyone.
Yes,
So
apparently everyone there has had enough, has done something horrible enough to deserve it.
yeah,
Including Father Glick.
yeah,
You
which that
know,
makes sense. He's a Catholic priest. I mean, that makes sense.
oh yeah, probably the worst amongst them.
It's kind of like the boardroom guy where he couldn't even say the things he had done. He whispered them to him. That's probably what he did with Cardinal Glick too.
No, have you? Yeah. No, have you ever watched or read Tony, world-renowned scriptwriter Tony Kushner's Angels in America?
Uh-uh.
Okay, so Angels in America, add this to the list. Uh, is it's like the defining play of America from like the 1990s,
Okay.
right? It's a play in two parts. The Millennium approaches and Percustoria. Uh, it's like altogether, it's like a 6 to 8 hour engagement on Broadway. But they did make a HBO miniseries based on it. Like it's 6 episodes, each one's an hour long. Um, Great, incredible cast in the TV show. Like Al Pacino's in it,
Oh
Meryl
wow.
Streep's in it. Um, just like what's his name? My boy Jeffrey Wright won an Emmy for it. It's
Nice.
incredible, and the whole thing is about um a modern Jew who has contracted AIDS is going to be the final prophet of God.
Oh wow. Okay.
And it has a bunch of different characters in it. And one of the main characters in it is Roy Cohn. He's played by Al Pacino. And Roy Cohn is a very much real life dude. He's American lawyer, and he helped put away um Ethel Rosenbaum. It was a huge espionage trial, and they found that Ethel Rosenbaum. I hope I got her name correct. Rosenberg. Ethel and Julius, her husband, sentenced them for espionage. And kind of decades later, we find out that that trial was like corrupt shit.
Mm.
And so as I'm watching this movie, I can't help but think about Angels in America and how Angels in America kind of exposes this guy who, in the 60s, or at least I think 70s, uh, did an incredible feat for America in exposing a couple of Russian filthy spies, right? But on the inside, he's this closeted homosexual who's going to die from AIDS.
The attorney?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
is that is that the Trump's attorney? That Roy Cohn?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He was the Trump's attorney. Yeah,
Yeah.
uh, and that's who I think that this priest is supposed to be.
Oh, okay.
He's this guy who's trying to do something which, on the surface, seems like a great thing for the public of New York, but behind the scenes, he's probably way worse than all of them.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you really think about it, anyone who supports him has to be that bad as well.
Okay.
They have to be that bad as well, or else they would not put up with that.
Sure.
That is guilt by association. Is it right? No, but is it enough for Loki here to deem them worthy of death?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. Um, so we don't really see much of the killing at the church, right? Like the wandering party shows up and everyone's dead. Like
Dude,
everyone's dead.
I loved it whenever it's the news report and he says something like, "Well, I agree with the general philosophy of what they're saying. I gotta say, this is a bit extreme for my taste," or something like that. Like that was so good.
um yeah, that's hilarious to me. So everyone's dead and Loki tries to stop Bartleby. Like, Bartleby is currently killing people off. Like Loki says, hey, we didn't have enough people out here to kill, so now he's going inside and killing all the parishioners and everyone else. And you just see like
Yep.
Bartleby in the sky throwing people as they fall. And so Loki, and I can't remember why, but Loki like steps in to try to stop what's going on. And Bartleby kills him. He just stabs him, and he at that point his wings are gone, right? So he's human now. And yeah,
Well,
Loki.
because once you become human, you gain the ability of compassion and understanding. He
Okay,
didn't understand what he was doing was wrong, but now that he's human, he can consciously think, "Oh my God, this was a horrible plan to begin with."
yeah. But at that point, he hadn't crossed through the church, so I'm assuming he's going to hell, right?
I would assert that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
Um,
was my reading as well.
Yeah. So, and this is, they had to throw one last little joke in. This is when Jay and Bethany run off, and Jay starts getting naked, and he's like, "Hey, you said when the world was going to end and there was 5 minutes left, we'd fuck, so let's go." But then he brings up, the John Doe jersey, the guy who, is being kept on life support by the church. The church is not allowing him to die. And then it clicks for Bethany, like, oh my God, that is God. So she rushes to the hospital to kill this guy so that
But that's the
God can be
thing.
free from
That's
the
also the thing. She has Jay stay back to try to distract and stop um Bartleby from entering the church this entire time. This is why it's important for us to see that Silent Bob is the more capable one of the two, because she asks for his assistance in
yeah,
going to kill God.
right. Which creates a pretty tense moment because then Jay picks up a machine gun and shoots the wings off of Bartleby, making him human.
Yeah, that helps him, you idiot.
Yeah, what are you doing? Uh, yeah, it's so good though. So, Bethany goes and she takes this guy off of life support, right in the nick of time as Bartleby is about to cross into the church. God, is freed from John Doe's body, and the door opens, and God and Metatron walk out, and it's
Yeah,
Alanis
and
Morissette.
and then it's Alanis Morissette. So funny. So
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, and there was a pretty sweet moment then, right? Because uh, Bartleby's looking at God and immediately feels like I'm guessing he feels repentant. Like you can see, like I don't know, some kind of relief as he knows he's about to die. Um, and
Yeah.
God
He's
smites him.
yeah, he gives him the old she gives him the old Black Bolt special, right? Though I was like, okay, like this is whenever I was on one, dude. I was like, if you cover to me, putting your head down and covering your ears should save you from God's voice as much as it should a fucking nuclear bomb.
Yeah. It's the same as getting under your desk if there's a nuclear bomb near a school.
Right?
Like,
Like I and so what? It only obliterates your skull if you like. What if I wanted to talk to God and I put on earmuffs? Like, would
right.
that work then?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe it was just because two hands of heaven were over his ears and they were super protective. I don't know. Like,
Right? Yeah, yeah. I was like, what is it's funny. It is funny, but like I don't know like if it's intentionally funny like that.
Right. And
You
is it
know.
just if you're right in her presence too? Because like Silent
Yeah, like
Bob
if
and
I'm
Bethany
talking to
aren't
her
very
like
far. Yeah.
right. Yeah. Like if
Like
I could okay, so here's a question. If we invited God onto a Zoom call,
it was it was a little Medusa-y to me, right? Because it was almost like because they told Jay put your head down and cover your ears. So do you have to be staring into God's eyes as well? Like as hear the voice? I don't know.
oh right. So maybe if we did a Zoom call, but we kept God's like image away, like we tell God to not activate
Yeah,
her
just the
camera.
profile picture. Yeah, down in the
Yeah,
bottom. Yeah.
right. Just a profile picture. Yeah. What do you think God's profile picture is?
It's the Jesus, the Happy
Oh yeah, yeah,
Christ.
yeah.
Yeah, dear
It would
Christ. Yeah.
be yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, Buddy
It'd
Christ.
be
Yeah,
that,
Buddy
but
Christ.
like it would have a cat head.
Yes.
You know, it'd
I'm
be
down with
that.
it. I might make that my profile picture and never show my face on a Zoom call again.
I'm googling Buddy Jesus cat to see if somebody's done that. I am disappointed to tell you that nobody has photoshopped a cat's head onto Buddy Jesus, as far as I can see.
Well, I'm gonna do that tonight and send it to you. I've learned how to use
Yeah, hey, not
Photoshop,
all
so
heroes wear capes, bud.
sometimes they wear sweaty golf shirts and a backwards hat.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'll tell you what. Um, yeah, this whole thing at the end was very funny to me, but in a way that I don't know if it should have been.
Sure. Yeah. Not sure if that's what Kevin Smith was going for. Yeah.
You know, and that's what I mean by like whenever I talk about like what I think the movie is trying to put off. I do not think that's supposed to be so funny.
Yeah. But now our
You know?
listeners and us will never look at it the same.
Right. Yeah.
But, I
But
mean,
now
this
I
is
know
the,
what to do
yeah,
whenever God talks around me.
but this is basically the end,
Yeah.
right? So when Bethany, releases God from John Doe's body, her stomach splits open and she starts to bleed. And we see in this moment, Silent Bob walks up and he's carrying her lifeless body.
Yes.
And Metatron says, like, hey, when you're a martyr, part of being a martyr is you have to die. Um, but we can't end the movie like that, of course. So God brings Bethany back to life. And
Well,
not only
she is the niece of Jesus. She was born
yes,
with that capability.
yes, you need the scion back. The last
Yep.
scion needs to continue on. And turns out she's not the last scion anymore because God has also virgin married her and given her the ability to have a child. So she's now pregnant as well.
Having a statement earlier in the movie about like, are you guys stupid? Like, sure, she didn't get pregnant from her husband with Jesus, but like, you really think that she was like that? Her and her husband didn't fuck? Like, are you guys stupid?
You really think he'd have stayed married to her that long if he wasn't getting laid?
Yeah, right, right. And there is like historical basis for or biblical basis for at least believing that Jesus had siblings. And you also have to think about the forbidden books, the books that were written by apostles or other characters in the Bible that were rejected from the Catholic Bible,
Yep.
and also lost texts.
Yep.
So really, who knows?
But you know what it
But
did
I
give
think
us? It gave us Buddy Christ. And you know what? I'm cool
it
with
did give us
that.
Buddy Christ, and I do like this as an ending.
Yeah.
It feels it. If I'm going to be honest, it feels kind of bad that it ends on that statement, and we haven't had a sequel.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the ending is poised perfectly for a continuation.
Yeah. Yeah, I am really interested to see what direction he goes with the sequel. Like I'm pretty excited for that because he's been pretty shut lip about it. Like hasn't really talked about what he's gonna do.
But
But
it's so interesting because like he he was active way, late 90s, early 2000s, and then he just didn't do anything.
yeah. So
Clerks 2 came out, and then the next movie of his after Clerks 2 was the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. That's like
yeah.
that's like 15 years or something.
So the story goes that I don't think he didn't direct Cop Out, but he either wrote it or like produced it or something. But the story is that he had such a bad experience with Bruce Willis that he quit Hollywood. Like he hated working with Bruce Willis so
Oh,
much that he quit Hollywood.
whoa, okay, sure.
Yeah, which
That's
makes sense
crazy.
because I mean, you hear from Sylvester Stallone that Bruce Willis was horrible to work with too. Like that's why he killed him off in the Expendables, or he's gone in the Expendables.
Oh, you know what? I am so like not following that shit. I had no idea about this.
Yeah, yeah, apparently. Which
Interesting.
I feel bad to say that now because he's got that really bad disease and can't act anymore. But yeah, apparently he was a real piece of shit late in his career. So,
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, 2010. Yeah, yeah. Um, what all other movies have you watched from Kevin Smith's little cinematic universe?
I actually haven't seen any of the Jay and Silent Bobs. That's next on my list. So
Okay, but you've seen Clerks.
yeah, I've seen the first two Clerks. I bought the third one. I haven't watched it yet. I've seen, I've seen Tusk, a couple other
Okay, and
ones.
what about Mallrats or Chasing Amy?
I watched Chasing Amy. I did watch that one.
Okay. Yeah. Chasing Amy might be like his most serious film.
I think so. Yeah, to go from Chasing Amy to this is kind of crazy.
Pretty crazy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But
Um Go on.
yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, that's Dogma. So we don't ever do this, and you call me a coward, but I want to do it because I genuinely want to know what you think. So let's just go with the 10-point scale. We'll leave the 11-point
Yeah.
scale over to the Forest Film Club. Give me where do you have this on your 10 on my 10-point scale?
On the patented Real Friends 10-point star system. Um I like this a lot. I like this a hell of a lot. I have some weird little inconsistencies and questions. But when viewed as it is, through a fantasy lens, right? And I like that it's termed on Wikipedia as a fantasy and not like a religious movie,
Right.
right? Because this is very much a fantasy movie. This very much follows a hero's journey,
Mm-hmm.
as it were. It's really fun. It offers up a different kind of religious philosophy with its iconography that one hasn't really wasn't really seen in film in 1999, and one that isn't really challenged in the last 30 years either.
Sure.
It's almost like people are afraid to make a movie that would make, you know, religious caricatures like angels vulnerable,
Yeah.
and to have it be written in a way that it's comprehensible but also complex in a storytelling fashion, fun characters. Yeah, I like this a lot. I think I gave this like an 8.
Yeah. That's exactly where I'm at. I put it in an 8 as well. I had a lot of fun watching this movie. Like as soon as it ended, I think I texted you both and I was like, how have I never seen this movie before? Like it it rips, And I mean, I was 4 years old when it came out, so I can understand. I wasn't even allowed to watch Harry Potter as a kid, so I can understand not being allowed to watch a kind of
Okay, let me ask you
anti-Christian
this.
movie.
Do you think your parents would have found this or Harry Potter like worse?
Probably Harry Potter,
Okay.
because we're not Catholic, right? And despite like a lot of the anti-Catholic things, there's a lot in this movie about having faith. And Chris Rock has this, Rufus has this great thing about ideas. Like I love his line where he says, "I don't want people to have beliefs because beliefs are hard to challenge. Have ideas because they can change and they can grow." Like, I think my mom would have vibed with that.
I love that. I love that part.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I
I
said, man,
really
Rufus had
like
a
that.
lot of lines that were like just speaking through, I feel like how Kevin Smith feels about the world.
Yeah, and he's right at that perfect age to do this through one of his movies.
Yeah.
Where you're feeling like brave enough to write down your real feelings through character. And then it says a lot that, if we're going with this idea that Rufus is saying what he thinks, to cast a black man in the role.
Yeah.
It's impressive. It's brave,
Yeah.
really. You know.
So, yeah, that's Dogma. You have any final thoughts on this movie other than it ripped?
Um, I I always thought that like the word dogma was really fun. I always thought that like I always wondered like if there was like a cryptid that was
Hmm.
called a dogma, what would it look like? And
Oh yeah.
because it feels like it could be,
Yeah.
from like Scandinavian folklore or something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true too. Like the talk about the movie a little bit more, like the idea of the dogma, right? Like the Muse talks about this. Like, you know, the idea that it's said in the Bible, one of the last things Jesus said before he left the earth to, I think it was Peter was the first pope, was that like, whatever doctrine you make on earth will apply in heaven, right? And so that's kind of the idea that the Muse talks about. She's like, leave it to the Catholics to mess all this up, to screw
Yeah.
everything up. So yeah, I mean, he's so well read on the Bible, and throwing in some. I don't want to call it slapstick humor, but there's some slapstick humor in this. But like, I think it really hammered home, the message it was trying to get across. And yeah, man, I mean, this movie could have come out now and still been super applicable, and it would have been met with probably just as many protests, if not more, that it did in 1999.
Oh, I would love to see like Ben Shapiro take this down. I would. Could you imagine what
Tucker Carlson.
that hack the critical drinker would say about this?
I saw he just released a video recently.
What a pathetic man. I hate him.
Yeah. Um, all right, man. Well, hey, thank you for talking Dogma with me. I'm pretty excited we got finally talked about a Kevin Smith movie.
Yeah,
Um,
super cool. Yeah, love Kevin Smith, love Dogma, love Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, love Clerks too.
yeah, maybe we'll do Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back since I've never seen it. That can be another one we do. So,
Yeah, I would be real interested in giving that a rewatch. I have a feeling that movie might be a little problematic.
but cool. So over there has been the Chocolate Bear Mundo.
If you don't know, you should know. This has been Mundo. Come see us on the Forest Film Club. Alex is over there too.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great time. Yeah, check them out there. Patrick is working hard on their TikTok and Instagram pages, so go check them out. And yeah, like you said, my name's Alex. This has been the Real Friends Podcast, and we'll see you next time.